Huh? Hello, Tina. Good morning, everyone, and I'd like to welcome you here today to the Jackson County Board of Supervisors meeting for Tuesday, January 24th of 2023. I have Don Schwenker and Ned Fagel, and myself, Mike Steinich, your county supervisors. I have Lisa and Bjorn from the auditor's office here supporting, and Luann supporting in the background also. And first on our agenda this morning is Todd Kinney, our county engineer, and on his agenda would be opening the rock bids. Or reviewing the rock bids.
So my first bid this morning is from River City Stone. Again, River City Stone, the Bernard Quarry. And the Ruby Quarry is for $7.55 per ton.
Oh, my God. I don't know if I got that in there before. Did I? Good morning.
Oh, yeah. Good morning.
The next bid this morning is from Preston Ready Mix. This is for the Elwood Jaeger and the Johnson's Quarry for $7.50. The next bid is from Bellevue Sand and Gravel. This is for the Bellevue, Lamont, Springbrook, St. Donatus, Beach, and Moorhead quarries for $7.35 per ton.
Straight through
$7.35, yes,
for each one of them.
for each one.
Remember, they already a little less.
The last bid this morning. Is from Wendling Quarries. Wendling Quarry for the Eden Valley and the Macokota is $8.40 per ton. Andrew, Bellevue, Delmer, Iron Hill, Rowan, Teets Grove, $7.85 per ton. Decker, Joinerville, and the Weiss/Sprank quarries for $7.50 per ton. And the Preston Quarry, $6.85 per ton. That is all of the bids this morning.
What was Preston again?
The Preston Quarry,
Yes. 685.
$6.85.
If Preston Ready Mix not bid Grand Quarry like they did last year.
They did not, they only bid Elwood Jaeger and Johnson's.
And same with one they didn't do for Oster Iron Hill.
Wendling was Iron Hill was $7.85.
Wendling was for Eden Valley and Macokota. Do they call the Macokota Quarry Macokota, or is that the Frost?
Yeah, Macokota has a separate land.
Macokota's Macokota, okay, that's $8.40. And Andrew, Bellevue, Delmer, Iron Hill, Rowan, Teets Grove, $7.85. Decker, Joinerville, and the Weiss/Sprank is $7.50. I must have missed a pay, and Preston is $6.85, so that's all they bid. They got three.
Yeah, so they're still Arnsdorf and Frost, they didn't bid Frank last year.
That's all you have, Lisa?
This is it.
Thank you. Todd, you will review with your department and come back with a recommendation, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, they're just quotes, so
Right.
we end up hauling rock from a lot of different quarries, so.
Right. I mean, I think they normally went and figured where they needed the most or how much they used the most and the mileage and considered in and. I mean, we ain't gonna travel 40 miles if we get it for, if it costs us 30 cents more a ton, it ain't worth it.
Yeah, we'll divvy up the tons we're gonna haul for each motor grader district, and where that's gonna come from. That's
Okay.
definitely what we do.
Appreciate that. All right. So we'll table that until Todd brings a recommendation, hopefully next meeting or maybe not.
The only one that's overlapped is the Bellevue.
There's two quarries. In Bellevue, so Wendling has a quarry in Bellevue, and so does Bellevue Sand and Gravel.
Okay. So then technically there isn't a more than one bid for any one quarry, is there?
Well, no, they have, so each one of these that are listed, they have rights to these quarries.
Right.
So they won't overlap any quarries, they're separate. I don't know why Wendling didn't bid Weiss or Frost or Orange, maybe they're not functional anymore, I don't know that.
We had a bid for leaves, right?
Yeah,
No, we didn't,
750.
I didn't catch that. Sorry.
But just because they don't bid it doesn't mean we can't haul out of there, so
Yeah.
that we don't have a guaranteed price. Right.
All right, thank you.
One
Um,
question, do all these supply their loader or do we gotta take the loader there? Consider
It would either they supply the loader, it's just whether we operate the loader or not, like we load ourselves.
that, okay.
Okay, so next on Todd's agenda would be discussion and possible action on a drug testing policy.
Yeah, so it's good practice to update this policy periodically, so send it to county attorney, solid waste, and Becky. And the what are they called? Unity Point, the people that we contract with to do the administration of it. So they've all reviewed it, incorporated their changes. For the most part, it's just made a change in some of the description language of OWI versus operating well or operating under the influence. It's just to correct the nomenclature. And then post-accident testing was changed a little bit. That's on 2C under those bullet items of when we're gonna do post-accident testing. And then on the last page, changed some of the names for the DREs. So it added myself, Jaden, and Mike Clausen, just in case, one of us isn't, can't be reached, basically, when there's an issue. Say a driver got in an accident, and we needed to, somebody has a question about the policy or what to do or where to send them, the DREs has to approve that person going to get tested at whatever facility you send them to, so. That's it.
Okay, and you recommending that for approval, Todd?
That's correct. So this serves secondary road department and solid waste, because they both have CDL.
Okay.
Just this doesn't have to go through the union, this isn't a negotiated.
Nope.
thing.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve the drug testing policy as presented.
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second to approve the drug testing policy as Todd presented. All those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed nay. Motion carried.
Thank you. Is this for us to sign?
That's correct.
And anything else, Todd, on your agenda? Updates? I know it was a tough week. In a sense,
Yeah, I mean,
we can't predict the weather, of course, and it's tough when it's 40 degrees and we get a lot of mush and we can't get that heavy equipment on the road to make 6-inch ruts and try to fix 3-inch ruts, but.
Yeah, so the environmental conditions made it kind of difficult, but I mean, that being said, we have issues we need to address program and policy wise as far as the big thing I see is the crown in the road is not there. I was just on 13th Street this morning. The big thing, you have to get water off the center of the road and then from the center of the road off the edge into the ditch. Because if you don't, you're gonna get potholes in the road. And that's the biggest difference I see, like driving roads, say in Clinton County versus Jackson County, is the amount of potholes, and just comes down to we need more crown on the road. So that'll be a focus come spring, working with the grader operators and trying to get some crown built in the road. It's gonna take time. You can't just go out there and cut crown on the road right away because you're gonna have a mess trying to move that much material at once. But we definitely need to get more crown on the road and then probably get some compaction. So we need to look at probably getting a retired roller or two so we can start compacting the surface. That's the big thing. Without a compacted surface, you lose the driving surface quicker. And if you're going to try and take some of that material from the edge of the road to build it up, if you leave it loose in there, it just doesn't compact and knit together. So, you get a heavy rain or saturating rain and you end up getting ruts. So you really need to work on compacting. If we're going to reshape roads, we want to compact them. I talked to Roger about that. He's putting together what I call like instructions. So if we go out to reshape a road, here's the first thing we do. Do we, we check the drainage? Do we need to do ditching? Do we take care of that first? Do we need to do any tiling? Are there any springs in the road? Then we start reshaping from the shoulders onto the road, and I don't want to haul that material away necessarily. That probably needs to go into the center road to basically we can rebuild the cross section. That's what we need to do. So we can get crown, rebuild the cross section, compact it, put rock on it. Then it's a road. Hopefully we can maintain and keep the potholes out of. So
You have a problem on these roads where the vegetation is growing in, so if you start trying to bring it in, that'll kind of, I was talking to a supervisor in a class last week and he said they had a big problem with if you just kind of scrape the edges, bring it to the center and you have the vegetation that was encroaching on the roadway in the center, it really kind of screws up the whole road because it doesn't allow for proper compaction. And
so what we typically do, so if you're going to pull the shoulders, what you're talking about, you typically try and mow those first. And what we do is we have a retriever, and I've talked to Roger about having you guys borrow it from Clinton County. It's basically looks like a disc gang, and it goes out on the edge on the wing of the grader, and you basically disc that up first, probably 2 times. So you break, number one, you chop up the vegetation, whatever's left after you mow, and then you hit it again and it's chopped up and basically dead. That's basically what we call it. You let it lay there on the edge for a few days, it gets fallow. Then you bring it into the road and compact it. We've never had an issue with vegetation growing up in the middle of the road.
Okay.
We've been talking about this for years, Todd, and I have always, of course you blade X amount of gravel off in the wintertime or whatever it may be, I thought you could maybe reclaim that, but they tell me it takes a pretty good operator and it's really time consuming to scrape that little bit back out of it that's viable. And I just thought, boy, if you could go by with a grader at a 45 and cut the outside foot and then bring it in.
Yeah, the problem without using a retriever is you end up, it's like a mobile plow. You bring all this fur,
Yeah.
and that's the part that gets hard to deal with. So that's why we use a retriever, because you chop it up into
Sure.
chunks or smaller pieces. And the big thing, I think the bigger thing that we probably need to implement is like if we start retrieving roads, my policy is in Clinton County is before a road gets re-rocked as part of our contract rock, we're supposed to remove any lips. And a lot of those roads, probably, I'm just guessing maybe half of them get the shoulders disced and retrieve. That goes on the road. We compact that, you put the rock down, you blade it, you compact it, and then we're done. So it takes probably 2 extra steps, but adding right before you add rock is the time to fix the crown, because you're putting rock on the road. So you want to bring that material in, build the crown up, then put your new rock on. So then you have a better driving surface. The crossroad or the cross section's fixed. So you don't, you got an easier road to maintain. You don't have the potholes, you don't have rumble strips as much, and the whole thing.
Completely makes sense, just keep squashing it, all the vehicles are getting bigger and the implements are getting bigger and they're squashing it down. You know, a perfect example is 328. I mean, if you travel that road, it's 60 feet wide, you know, I mean, you could put 3 cars side by side easily. But it just takes that much more rock, and do you ditch it, do you, like you say, reclaim it is an excellent idea to me, but that's.
Yeah, so I think that's probably the next step is we'll try it out so the guys can kind of get a handle on how to use it. And my goal would be to get you guys a couple of them, and even if you had a wide road, I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why, you know, we need more rock to build ground. There's too many rock outcroppings in the road. You know, all kinds of reasons not to build crown, but my point is you have to get water off the road, number one priority. So even if you crown the middle third of the road and the water sits on the outer third, I'd much rather have that than the water sitting in the middle third. So
How much is a reclaimer?
oh, they're probably around 20 grand, 25 grand. And you guys, so they go right on wherever you put the wings. We have front mount retrievers just because they're a little easier to see as you're operated. But you can get mid mount ones where your wings are, it just depends on where you have your snow wings, so.
So these retrievers mount to the, grader, yeah.
Is there a lot of training to go into use them or?
It'll take some, I mean, it's not like I'm more than, what do you call it? More than confident you guys have operators that can run them for sure.
Well, I just
So-
know, and when I announced I was running for supervisor, that was the biggest thing you hear about is roads, gravel roads, you know. And I love hearing the plan that you're talking about, how you maintain it, get the crown back before you start just arbitrarily putting gravel. I'm not saying that's what they did in the past, but that makes a lot of sense. And doing it right the first time saves a lot of repeat and extra expense in the long run.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, Jackson County has some roads that are very difficult to maintain just because of terrain, but still, we should be able to put crown in the roads for the lion's share of those. And it just takes a little bit of I guess probably a procedural change, but you know, the goal is to start, like I said, we picked out 4 miles to reshape, but the next step with that is, you know, if each motor grader district's getting his whatever it is, 10,000 ton of rock, prior to that rock getting hauled, we need to start making sure the road is shaped correctly. And you do that by retrieving the shoulders and doing what we need to do. So it'll take time. I mean, it's nothing's going to happen overnight or in one season. It's going to take a period of time to get the roads back in shape.
So, I really appreciate your insight and your plan. I have a plan anyway, and as far as the retriever goes, I guess. I know you had mentioned a while back here, you can't get the sign truck. I know we okayed a skid loader. So we'll maybe look at the end of the year here, budget maybe. I don't know if you would rent yours or you would graciously let us use it or.
So what I would probably just let you guys use it for, you know, a week or two and kind of get a feel for it. And then, because we have front mounts and maybe I'm just, how do I tell my guys, I've never ran a grader, but I know what I want the road cross section to look like. So however you get it to there, that's fine. So some guys might say, well, I'd rather have a mid mount instead of a front mount. I'm totally fine with that, but I just want to get what they prefer to operate so they can go out and operate it with confidence. And then after that, I'm just gonna make sure it looks like what I want it to when it's done, basically.
Thank you for that. All right, anything else for Todd?
Do we have? I'm sure we do like a snow policy for when the gravel should be plowed, like how much snow we should get, or are they plowed every time?
So we have a snow
Kind of a
ordinance.
clarification on that.
Yeah, so there's a snow ordinance that the board passed probably back in the 90s, I'm gonna guess. It does not state that when we reach 3.5 inches of snowfall, the gravel roads will get plowed. So there's not a quantifiable amount of moisture. It's just, it's a decision that's made. Most of the time, I would say if we get upwards of 3 or more inches of snow, they're probably gonna go out. Or if we get some like freezing rain and the roads are icy. But you know, if we get 1 inch, 2 inches and it's blowing across the road and it only sits on where it's wind protected, they're probably not going to go out. But on the paved roads, it usually says that we're not going to get to a bare pavement condition. It's probably just going to be like wheel track, but more than likely they're going to end up getting, unless it's super cold and you can't use the icing material, you're probably going to end up with bare pavement. If it's super cold, then it'll probably just be wheel track and stuff. So. But there's a snow ordinance. It should be on your guys' website, isn't it? Yeah.
You have one, I don't know if it's on the website. It is?
That's
Okay,
weird, I
yes,
had-
it is.
People questioning when we just had them like dusting. I'm like, I don't think they can work for that.
No, it would, like I said, unless it's drifting but there is no like automatic threshold once we reach a certain amount.
Tape measurement, yeah.
Well, I can say, Todd, that I certainly appreciate your guys being out there. I think it was Friday was a tough day when it was real soft and moist and but it was tough traveling that morning early. It really was. And of course, you had a fair amount of complaints. And I really appreciate the guys the next day when it was froze hard enough to get out there, and I've got that many calls back thanking them, so. You can pass that along that they, when they could get out there, they did, and you indicated to me also, if they didn't get it completed on Friday, they'd be out Saturday morning, so. I really appreciate that, and they were slick yet when they plowed them up, but they were good, they were, yeah.
Yep, and we did get a lot of complaints and, it's, I emailed, I think, one of the people back that, we don't like them in this condition any more than, the people driving on them, because, most of the people that work in Jackson County drive on the roads that they maintain, so it's,
And they're paying taxes also, so, this thing about why do I pay my taxes if I gotta clean my own road? Well, let's be patient, do the best we can. I mean, I appreciate the guys that are on cattle or milk truck or something of that sort, but we try to accommodate them, so. I think you did a great job, so that's all of that.
all right,
Anything else, Todd?
no.
Hang around here a while, will you? All right, any visitors or citizens, would like to make any comments? You're on the agenda, Lenny, so I'll wait for that. Anybody else here?
I have a question when you're redoing a road like that and you're talking about putting the gravel on. When you're gonna restructure a road, for lack of a term, what do you consider you're gonna need for rock base?
So typically, if we're doing like aggressive reshaping, we would probably haul like a clean stone, like a 1-inch clean or what they call a special backfill. It's got clean stone and chips in it too.
Yep.
And that would go on top of the retrieve material that has a lot of fines in it. And then the driving surface would be your regular, like your road rock class A kind of stuff. Cause you don't wanna, you need the clean rock for the base. Cause you get the strength from the aggregate interlock where the rocks can't slide past each other. And then you need the rock on top of that with the fines for grading, cause that's what really compacts. That's the surface you wanna drive on.
So your inches, depends on what the road surface is like when you start. What you're
Right.
gonna have to add.
Yeah, so if we're not bringing a bunch of material on, you maybe not need the 1-inch clean. But if we're doing it really aggressive, then we would probably need to put the 1-inch clean down first, compact it, and then bring a regular road rock.
Thanks. John, anything? No, just here to observe, huh? Good. All right, next on our agenda is Lenny Keelan from the High Bridge Road Hard Surface
That's me too, isn't it?
Committee, yeah.
Gotta
Oh, but
submit it.
And it says on my notes here, present petition and hard surfacing of High Bridge Road. Lenny?
Yeah, I'm just a spokesman for a group that we
You want to take them up here?
put together last year.
Sneak right around the corner.
Along with,
Watch your head there, Lenny. TV's
On
kind
that
of,
TV.
sometimes.
My brother Ron Thielen, Harry Altos and Jim Geisman. We just put together a committee to present to the supervisors and the engineer. And we did meet in May with the other supervisors and the past engineer. And then when I've been talking to Mike and when Todd came on board and was gonna be a permanent fixture, I did talk to him and he kind of helped me put this petition together to get on the 5-year plan or sooner, obviously. Everything that you guys just talked about, obviously we have those issues, but we did put together a letter for the supervisors here and for Todd to review along with 70-some signatures of people that either live on High Bridge Road or had business on there, traveled a lot. And along with some pictures that we have taken in the last while. And I do want to thank you too for the last couple of weeks because we know what you guys were going through and you guys did do a good job on High Bridge Road, getting it back to where we figured maybe it wasn't safe to travel. So I know you have a 5-year plan meeting coming up. I don't know if that's set yet, the date.
Tentatively.
Okay,
Todd,
so-
was it the
23rd.
23rd February?
Yes.
So our question is bringing us here, get us on that plan now, or do we have to be at that meeting or?
I guess, well, of course, we do have a 5-year road plan. And it's structured to our worst roads, of course, our road count, of
Yeah.
course, also. We pretty much, I won't throw anybody under the bus here, but we take the recommendations of our engineer a lot. And respect his opinion and his professional advice, so.
And
I guess we take all things into consideration and of course, we're gonna drive up, take a look and whatnot, but.
Yeah.
You know, we have. How many petitions do we have on file?
What, I know of 3 just for this year, 134th Street for the airport. We got one in for 13th Street coming in from the east to the hospital, and then this one for High Bridge.
And how did they stay in the books like forever?
Yeah, we keep the documentation like what gets submitted here.
Cause I know there's been others in the past in our 5-year road plan to come forward, and I mean,
So-
it's nice to sit in on a 5-year road plan if you've never heard.
Oh, we'll gladly come with the jail.
So,
Know what it is.
what I was gonna talk to the board, about is. My recommendation would be you need to come up with a plan of how you're gonna deal with petitions. So how do you pick one petition over another? ADT is a big one, like how much traffic does each road get? Does it have a trips generator on there? Like, does it have say like an industry, Big Ben site, multiple
Confinement,
hog confinements, that kind of thing? Is it a road that's very difficult to maintain? Are we spending a lot of money to maintain a gravel road where it would reach the break point where paving would be a better option? So there's different things to look at. Probably the biggest one is ADT.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna quote unquote provide a higher level service. This is what this is about. You're requesting a higher level service than an aggregate gravel road. So how do you decide where to put? How do you prioritize which petitions you want to do? So I think that's a policy the board would need to visit and come up with, because my guess is, you're gonna continue to get petitions for paving and I don't think you want to end up in a situation like we looked at for the destination lights. I think you guys weren't here for that, but we're gonna end up putting destination lights at every paved road intersection basically because we'd already done one where the approaching leg was 60 ADT and it was already the lowest ADT intersection with the light, and we had a bunch of other paved road intersections that had higher ADT that didn't have a light. So you set the bar real low, and now everything in between, we really have to put lights on. So here, I think you need to have a plan of how you're gonna deal with petitions. That should be the easy part, really. The hard part is how do you want to fund them? So you have 2 basic ways you can fund them. I'm sorry, three ways. One is, if they're a farm to market route, which High Bridge Road is, or excuse me, yeah,
Yes.
High Bridge Road is FM. To use FM funds, you have to meet certain design requirements. Looking at that road, it would be very difficult. So what I mean by that is horizontal curvature, vertical curvature, shoulder width, clear zone. You're probably gonna end up, if you want to use FM funds, you're gonna have to completely regrade the road, which is gonna be buying right away. You're gonna have a lot of prep work. You're gonna have as much money spent in prepping the road for paving than you would have paving it, but that's an option. The other option would be to basically pave as is, and that's what I call the macadam paving, where you just build the road up, provide a base, and put asphalt on it. You don't change the vertical profile, you don't change the horizontal profile, you don't really change anything. Make sure your drainage structures, your culverts and your pipes, bridges are in good shape, and then you pave what's there. The third option, which we did in Clinton County back in 2010, is the board decided to do a urban renewal bond. So it's a general obligation bond. It doesn't have to come to a vote of the public. And I think they budgeted $6 million, and that's the last time Clinton County paved aggregate surface road. It was using bond money.
And did you refigure that road then, or did you pave in place, or as you call it?
So we did multiple, we never regraded a road. We had what we called the Palm Road. It's 350th Avenue, was graded for paving a long time ago,
Okay,
like a couple decades, 20, 30 years ago. We ended up paving that one, and then we did a lot of macadam road paving. So that was an urban renewal one. And then, you know, the only issue, and we did some just building roads up with macadam too. So that's the other thing I was gonna talk about. We're talking about an increase in level service. So you can drive on it in the spring without having issues and you mitigate some of the fugitive dust. So there was also a subset of roads based on ADT and level and type of use. We just build them up with macadam stone or base one, and then we dust control each year. So it's kind of an intermediate step. It's not paved, but it's not your basic minimal maintenance gravel road. So it's like an intermediate step of a higher level service. You don't have as much dust or minimal dust, and the road is hard year round, basically.
So if we don't grade to pave, do you lose FEMA funding if something happens? I mean, I've heard this before as far as if it's not up to policy or up to code, I wouldn't say code, but.
So what would happen is you're talking about your ordinance, your road and bridge ordinance, which I think you would have passed. I gotta look and see if you've passed that, but what that basically says is when you build a new bridge or a road, you're gonna build it, say you build your bridges 27 feet wide. That's what your ordinance says. So when, say, the bridge is washed out by a flood, you can put it back at 27 feet wide because your ordinance says that's what you're gonna do. Same thing with the paving. If your paving ordinance says you pave a road with 4-foot shoulders, 22 foot wide, and you don't do that, then if that road gets washed out, then you would not be eligible because you didn't follow your ordinance. I'd have to look and see if you guys have that ordinance, but macadam paving or paving what's there is the least expensive way to get it paved for sure.
I guess-
Where you're gonna end up with the shoulders breaking off though, like, isn't it Iron Bridge Road, they don't really have a shoulder, so then they start.
So what we would do, what I would propose, our typical cross section. So we want to have a 22-foot paved area. So that's like any normal paved road has 11-foot lanes. So we'd have that. And then my goal would be have a 4-foot aggregate shoulder, 3 if you can't. So then you basically, if you have an aggregate shoulder that's macadam based too, you have that lateral support for the outside wheel path, and you don't get that. I think we had a lot of macadam roads in Clinton County, and we didn't have that way back when. They didn't macadam the full width. And so you go from edge of pavement, like straight down in the ditch, and then you start seeing it go like this, and then it breaks off. So to avoid that, you build an actual macadam shoulder outside beyond the edge of asphalt, so you have lateral support there.
Would you need to buy right away if that road doesn't have it, or a road doesn't have it, if you to get those shoulders?
So I mean, I would have to look at that. I mean, that we would try and avoid that at all costs because people want the road paved, but they don't want to lose property. I mean, they don't want to sell right away. So if at all possible, we would try and avoid that definitely. But that would be, if we couldn't get that, I mean, we'd really want to look at, can we put in some other kind of like a longitudinal drain structure where we could, like say, partially fill in a ditch so we can make it, so we can have a shoulder without having it drop straight down. So it would just depend on the situation, but we would try and avoid that. Good.
Todd, have you looked at these pictures?
Yeah.
That's everything he was talking about.
Of course, I
Yeah.
mean, once you start buying right away, then you've got setback issues and you've got a lot of different things probably, but we certainly did. I mean, we always had the road count data, of course, but we never really had much other data to go by in the past. And when you're talking about collecting data as far as other things.
So I just looked at the ADT map. High Bridge Road wouldn't be in the top 5 for ADT of unpaved roads. So like 308th Street is 280 vehicles a day. 200th Avenue is 280, 13th Street is 250, Mill Creek 210, 35th Street 180. And I believe High Bridge was 150. So it's up there. It'd probably be 6th or 7th.
You know when that was done by chance?
2021.
Oh, it was done. Well, there was a question on that, and of course, when you go around and get all these petitions, everybody has their complaints, just like you get every day. I had heard everything. One of the complaints is where they put that counter. It was put at the intersection of High Bridge Road and St. Catharines Road, which doesn't count anything from St. Anita's to St. Catharines Road, which is a lot of farms on there, a lot of residents live in that area, so I'm not sure how you set up the counters and how that all works, but they just complained that it wasn't a very good spot, so.
Yeah, they use formulas, so like when they say like this road has 280 vehicles, they may or may not have actually counted on that road. What they end up doing is counting like certain areas, and there's like a logarithm they use to calculate ADT, so. We could go out and we have our own counters, we could go out and do a survey and count actual traffic, but
Don't
guess-
want to tell them when you're doing it, because they just go back.
Yeah.
it's actually not the old rope on the road, it's a sensor that you mount on a pole, and you wouldn't know it's there. It's well, Jaden puts it out there. What is this, half the size of a toaster probably?
Yeah, about that.
I've seen them on the
Yeah.
golf course road and. But.
Well, obviously, we'd like to see the traffic count done sometime in the summertime with Needle Valley is, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but there's been several new homes being built there and a lot more traffic, a lot more people there in the summer, obviously, and there is in the winter time, but some of them are permanent now, so there will be just as much traffic for some of them as. One of the other concerns, obviously, is that road goes between two farm sets of buildings. And the dust problems, and there's school bus stops at the one right now, and I've actually seen it turn around in that driving, which surprises me in an area that's kind of dangerous, I believe, so. The dust problem is definitely an issue in the summertime with traffic going through there, so.
Yeah, so I mean, like I've told Supervisor Stiles before, you give me the money, we can pay everything. I mean, that's the fun part for engineers, getting to build stuff, right?
You want me to make it look good at that?
Of those top 5 ADT roads that you're talking about, are any of those on your 5-year road plan scheduled to get paved or?
No. So really, a lot of these are gonna be local roads, not FM eligible. So the paving project stuff, the farm to market account stuff is already earmarked being spent on FM routes that are already paved. So as an example, 24.5% of Jackson County's road system is already paved. Clinton County's is about 23%. So you're as far as the amount of roads you have paved, it's not like you're way under the average. It's just, you have certain roads that are what I call collector gravels that get feed in, or they go to like heading into a big subdivision or that kind of thing. So again, it just, the board needs to come up with a plan or policy, how you're gonna handle these. And then, once that's in place, then we need to figure out how we're gonna pay for it.
So I guess that's our issue too, and you all know it, that is to maintain the ones that we have, and we're gonna overlay one this next year, that's over 53 years old, so it's the oldest.
Hard surfaces.
It's concrete.
53 years old, so of course, they deteriorate from the bottom, as we know, they get moisture on it. You cut a patch out to replace it, and it's only this thick anymore, and it's undermined and whatnot, so I mean, yeah, we've got to maintain some, and Ronnie, did you have something you wanted to?
Yeah, I was just, as you mentioned, you had 3 different ways to fund these, and we threw a sentence in the petition there as well, but I was involved with Dubuque County a little while back, and a fourth option, we threw it in there, is there any kind of a resident landowner co-pay percentage wise, and if that's the case, does that move you up, and what is that? Is it a number? Is it a percentage? If it's $2 million to pave it, is it 10%? Is it 15? Is it 50? Or what kind of percentage of that would increase our chances of moving up the list?
So, yeah, he's exactly right. There's another option called a secondary road assessment district. That's where you enter an agreement with the group of people that have frontage on the road that you're gonna pave, and you can pick a number, 50%, whatever, what they pay for. But again, I think that kind of, like you said, does that move you up the list? If you have a lower ADT, I think that would all have to be addressed in the policy. So like if you're paying for 25 to 50% of it, you add 50% extra to your ADT, if it's only going to be your ADT threshold, or you do a pointing system, meaning say like ADT is, you know, a third of the points. Amount paid by adjacent property owner is a third, and then overall use of the road is another third. So you just have a point scoring system and that's how you address it. You know what I mean?
And then, you know, you're gonna get, if one road gets paved, no doubt, you got a lot of other people saying, why didn't we get it? They say, hey, they paid for 50% of it. You guys willing to do that? I mean, that's I guess a criteria that I think could be looked at.
Just for general discussion here too. So we looked at that 134th Street, kind of, we did some cost estimating for that because the city asked for that. So like we built it up with macadam and put a double chip seal on it, which is a bituminous surface, but it's not asphalt. That was 300,000 per mile. Macadam only with dust control was 190, and then like 7 inches of asphalt placed on grade with shoulders was about 500,000 per mile. So just to kind of give you some ballpark for it.
So what's the maintenance life versus macadam versus the chip seal? I mean, you know, when you're talking.
So we did a pilot program for seal coating in Clinton County. It was about it goes between 67 and the 2 mile road going south out of Andover. We just did it as seal coat, and then we kind of monitored it and see how often we had to reapply. And basically we're finding out it's about a wash, that it's probably just as cost effective to pave it with asphalt than it is to keep reapplying chip seal every 6 years kind of thing. Because once you put asphalt down, for us, we're gonna get at least what we usually figure is 18 to 20 years out of it. And then we'll have to do some kind of rehab.
How did them roads in Clinton County go that you did in 2010, how they opened up with that system you were using there,
For
that McComb or whatever we were talking about?
Macadam roads, it's great. Macadam's I mean, so really it's about 6 to 8 inches of what we call crusher run material, like 3 to 6 inch size rocks. That's your base. And then we come in and put usually 4 to 5 inches of chokestone, which is like a class A with fines. And then you compact the heck out of it. And then we dust control them, and we get a lot of requests for, can we have our road macadam? Put it that way. Same thing with base one. Macadam roads, I would say, if you're gonna get a lot of heavy truck traffic, which I don't think yours necessarily would, but
Big farm. Semis call them.
yeah, so like the one I'm talking about was on a quarry where we're getting 80 trucks a day. I would not use base one, I would put macadam, but you know, if it's just mostly residential, the base one holds up pretty well, so. And then some of the roads we macadam first and then pave them with 3 inches of asphalt. They're you know, that's a good road section.
Anybody else? Well, we sure appreciate you guys coming in.
No,
We
we
sure take it into consideration and talk to Todd and look at all our options and where we might go and where our plan is.
Yeah.
So do you want me to come up with policy for paving?
You know, it's not a bad idea. It's something we should review certainly, or take a look at. You know,
Like a
if we-
pointing system?
if we can mirror, if there is a system, yeah, you can say, I mean, you're taking the road count, you're taking who lives on the road, not who lives there, but what kind of, you know, if there's a grain farmer, or if there's like you say, a confinement building or something. I know Delaware County don't allow confinements on a gravel road. Only on hard surface.
I would like to have something that addresses the whole county, so we don't need to revisit this every time somebody comes up with a proposal for the
No,
gravel
you're
road.
right.
So I want something that we can maintain uniformity, regardless of the situation where it is. So that's what I'm looking at.
Is
Of
there
course,
any
like
other-
Ronnie said too, the owner assessment would come into play too, if that's, you know.
Is there any other state or federal money that can be applied for any of these roads, or? Who would
So
have to do that?
yeah, you're talking about like a raise grant or something like that. You would have to have some kind of goes back to inequity. I don't think you probably have a lot of inequities on that road. And then the other is some kind of development, like that's generating jobs kind of thing, you
Right.
know?
Okay.
So I guess we're, like we've said before, we're so very fortunate to have that beautiful Macocata River running through Jackson County, but it also comes with 4 or 5 bridges that are 500 feet long.
Yeah.
And, you know, I come back from Preston last night with the bus and, you know, there's a car coming from the other way and you know, there's room for 2 of you on there.
So that's it.
I got stopped, you know, and it's like, you know, man, that thing should be replaced, but you know, there's a price tag to them. They'll go
So-
to the river, you know.
In all reality, you're probably looking at, if you're really trying to, if you're serious about improving level of service on some gravel roads. You're probably looking at trying to do some kind of mechanical stabilization first. What I mean by that is adding rock thickness and then dust controlling it. And then doing that in steps or phases, and then at some point. Putting some kind of hard surfacing on it, whether it's seal coat or asphalt. If you're trying to do it without, like, say, bonding, you're probably only gonna be able to do, you know. Maybe $200,000 or $300,000 worth a year. That might be a mile or two a year, and that's it. Unless you're gonna find extra money, I just don't know. You can't take money, you can, but I would recommend that you don't decrease the amount of bridge work we're doing. You don't decrease the amount of rock that we're putting on the rest of the roads. And you don't eliminate replacing equipment, and those are your three biggest chunks out of our budget, so. I don't know where else to find the money.
That
I mean-
macadam, what's the service, you know, you said 6-7 years with chip sealing, you gotta go back in, resurface it, whatever. What's macadam, you said you go in and you dust control it every year.
That's it.
You don't have to touch, how long can you not touch it except for dust control?
So what we typically do is try and blade it twice a year. And so in the springtime, we'll come in and build the crown back in, add rock when we need to, compact it. And they're hard. So you gotta do this after a rain because it is like hard to blade. So we compact it and then we dust control it and then we pretty much leave it the whole year. And then we come back in the fall and do the same thing, shape it back up for the winter, and then that's it.
So is this the base one that you're talking about?
No,
Okay, so we went and viewed a base one. There's a couple of your roads that are not too far from here, right up by Delmer that are base one, correct? We went and looked at them.
Delmer?
So I would say east and north of Delmer. Just in Clinton County. Can't remember what road we're on, but we went out. Mike would know, because.
So you went with the one by Petersville?
Yeah,
I would not look at that one because that was the thinnest one we've ever done because it's such a low.
that was a
volume.
base one though.
Yeah, but it was. It had the, well, see, I can tell you how much it had, total 290th.
That's been 3-4 years ago since we looked at it though.
Yeah, so it was done in 2014. Yeah, I guess it had 4 inches of new rock put down. But I would say one of the better ones to look at that gets a fair amount of traffic is 210th Avenue, just west of Grand Mountain. So if you're coming south on 61, I'd exit at Welton there and go west. And then just keep going west and then take a left and go down 210th, and you'll that first section is just regular gravel. And then you'll come to the section that's base one, and it'll be night and day difference.
What's your macadam road? I mean, I'd like to kind of,
So you know where Coonhouse is in Cook
Yeah.
County? So you take that exit and instead of turning right to go on Old 61 to go into
Go
Coonhouse,
straight
just
on.
keep going east. That's Macadam Road.
okay,
So when you say macadam, macadam's your base,
Macadam's the base though.
so it's 3 to 6 inch stone.
Yeah.
That's what that is, but then you're putting,
You have a choke stone, a driving surface. on
Right.
top.
so the macadam is just your base.
Right,
That's
right.
down, yeah.
Yeah, and those things are, it doesn't really matter how soft the roads get in the spring. The Macadam roads are hard.
I honestly think our ordinance, if I remember right, our ordinance says that we have to build them with macadam base. I'm not 100% sure of that, but that,
Any new road or
any new hard surface, yeah.
I mean, to me, in looking at these pictures, it doesn't appear that there is a crown at all, and I think that would
No,
help
and everything he
a
talked
whole,
about, getting that,
lot on this road.
yeah, and if you look at them, the vegetation inside, it just holds all the water in there. I mean, it'll be totally 2 foot all the way across if it's raining hard.
Oh, yeah,
It just run off. But that idea of getting rid of that
I think,
vegetation on that,
I think we
Size
work on
is
that, and I
huge.
think that'll.
Well, and really, ladies, there's not much vegetation. It's just that there's no
ground.
There's-
crown.
Right.
They kind of smile, my friends, they smile back.
Like this is, like, even if there was a lip along here, which there really isn't. I'd just soon have the water sitting here at the lip than sitting here in the middle of the road.
Right.
I guess this was one question to you guys on this road. Hearing what his plan is for the gravel roads in Jackson County, how he wants to address the crown and build them up and get rid of the vegetation. If a surface got on there that cut the dust got rid of most, or not all, the we went like macadam, and got rid of pretty much all the potholes, became hard and nullified. You don't care if it's hard, you don't care if it's paved or concrete or whatever, as long as it doesn't have any potholes and there's no dust, right?
Yeah, obviously that's gonna be a lot better, but.
Yeah.
You prefer that?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
No different.
I hear you.
No. Give them. I can tell you can't.
Well, you know, what everybody wants versus what we can afford to pay for it and things like that, no bang for our buck. You know, if you start looking at all the other intersections of roads that need to have the thing, you know, if we come up with a policy, you know, if the goal is to get rid of the dust as much as possible, get rid of the potholes and have a clean, dry surface.
Yeah.
You know, there's different ways to do that. Sometimes you don't need an 18-wheeler to go to fairway. Sometimes, you know, a pickup truck or, you know.
And I don't think the dust quote is the county's issue. I mean,
Right.
you live on a gravel road, you know you're gonna get dust. You know, but yeah, having potholes all the way across the road, that's an issue.
Yeah, so the thing about the dust control or dust palette is the reason why I recommended we do it in Clinton County is because it does hold the surface together. So it creates that crust when there isn't enough surface moisture to keep it together. So it basically makes that surface last longer. So you don't end up with loose gravel because it's you know, it's hygroscopic, so it pulls water out of the air. It allows the surface to stay together. So there's a benefit to us maintaining the road with dust control versus not, because it allows that road crown crust, whatever you want to call it,
Right.
to stay compacted.
But it sure is slick
Road is
anyway.
sure covered by my
Yeah.
house with
It
that.
sure is slick. I mean, there's day difference from a dust control road where the ice
Right, but
stays, you know.
We don't wanna get in where we're dust controlling all of Jackson County.
No, what we do is
I
we
mean-
only dust control roads that have been stabilized. So it's either been macadam or chemically stabilized, and that's the only ones we do. And we actually, when we use calcium chlorides, we actually skip roads. So like we do it once a year, we don't do it twice, we'll do it in the spring, and that's all we do. And if you want to dust control in front of your house, if you live on that road, you're more than welcome to do a second application, but we only do it once a year.
So you're talking dust, when you're talking your dust control, you as a county, you're doing some dust
Yeah.
control? Okay, so it's not just personal people that are getting the permits and doing their own, you're
We're doing it
talking,
from point A to point B.
Okay.
We stabilize
okay. Interesting.
And what do you say that costs a month?
about 5,000. So we spend about 100,000.
So at $5,000, you're not grading that every 2 weeks either then.
No, if we stabilize it, like I said, we'd prep it in the spring, compact it, dust control it, and we would try to avoid grading it again till the fall. Now, if we get a heavy rain, you get washouts, you gotta go ahead and touch it up, but our goal is to hit it in the spring, compact it, dust control it, and don't hit it again till the fall.
That's something different. I'd be interested to see a pavement. I don't even know if you want to call it a pavement policy or just a road improvement policy on how we want to proceed. You know, one for the gravel roads, one for, you know, becoming paved, you know, type of thing, because, you know, there's a lot of areas that need touched up, and maybe just a different perspective on this kind of this road has these problems that we've best served to do a cat one or a macadam or, you know, because again, it's all bang for the buck, and it's, you know, you can get places a lot of different ways, but most of the time, it's just the destination people care about. And that's what we need to think about.
So just throw this out there. I can tell where I'm going with it. So if it takes, you know, where's my budget numbers here for macadam? If we just did macadam with dust control, about $190,000 per mile. I mean, when we started in Clinton County, we just started with, we were doing like a mile and a half at a time. So do you want to start? I know it's transferring, like allowing more transfer of 200,000 a mile a year and just start picking these roads off. I mean, just because the base ones we have budgeted in Clinton County, we've been doing a mile a year, right? And then we've been doing it since 2010, and now we have almost 30 miles that have been stabilized. So how do you build a program? You start a program and you just do a little bit at a time.
Well, the biggest thing I hear about is the fact that, yeah, our gravel budget is increased dramatically over the last several years. Gone, I think, what, 700,000 to $1 million. Now proposed this year, $1.1 million. under the situation we have with the grounds and the flat roads and the vegetation, is that cost-effective money spent, or is it better to go in and pick these trouble areas, build them up correctly and maintain them to the point where you have less and less trouble areas? That's,
So the thing about the macadam and base one is your graveling cycles get reduced. And you don't need to keep, we don't add rock to these every year.
right.
So once we stabilize them, it may be several years before we go out and apply any significant amount of rock to them. Now, we might have to sprinkle some rock on the macadam roads if we start seeing the bigger rock up towards the surface, but the idea is you don't, because you have that dust control on there, you keep the driving stone intact and you don't lose that. You know, you don't get it stripped off with traffic, you don't lose that through dust. So, I mean, I think it's more sustainable to have a mixture of what I would call medium service roads that you're losing a lot of aggregate because of traffic, because of what have you, heavy loads. And you do some kind of stabilization on that, so then you don't end up losing as much stone. You mentioned, we're budgeting an extra $100,000 for gravel. You
Well,
look
I
at the
got
bids,
absorbed up in the.
75,000 of that is through price increase.
Right. So, I mean, right now, we're barely treading water, trying to keep our roads situated. We need to come up with some kind of plan to
Well-
address issues and.
I guess going off of that though. This crown restructuring, you're saying that's gonna, not be an overnight process. Obviously, we're gonna be working at trying to get all of our gravel roads that way. Would we be better to, and I guess I would be looking at your expertise in this, to get all of our gravel, try to get all of our gravel roads in shape first, and then look at this type of project versus picking just 1 mile of road versus all the miles that we have for the county that need obviously help.
I mean, that's a decision for the board. I mean, I would say, if you come up with a road improvement policy, which I think that'll be the next step that I'll put something together, is that I think if the road meets the requirements to have it improved, whether it's macadam or whatever, I wouldn't necessarily wait till the crown's put back into it. I mean, we would just pick a road and we'd start working, we would do it, right? I mean, we're gonna get the crown built back in when we macadam,
Right.
so.
But I'm just saying versus, I was looking at more of the dollar structure. We're spending 190,000 for 1 mile. Versus what it's gonna cost us to try to get all these other roads back in, we'd be better to.
Well, let's take a look if we can put together a road improvement type policy and see where we wanna go or where we might wanna be, I mean, we got X amount of gravel roads, 450 miles, if you will.
You're not gonna cat them all, you don't want cat one.
No.
Right.
There's gonna be criteria for each, but I think that would be something we should really look into, because we can start identifying trouble spots. And the more you do, the better off you are in the long run.
I like the idea of the point system somehow, I think that there's reasoning and logic behind what you do.
Yeah, so, I mean, just looking at your ADT map, I mean, you got like 8 gravel roads are 280 vehicles a day, 1 at 250. Those 3 are higher ADT than some of your FM paved routes.
Yeah, I know. I've heard it before.
I might have mentioned that.
And so, I mean, I would say, you don't want to take away budget for what we're gonna try and do to the tire system. If you're really, I mean, like I said, the first step of a program is taking the first step, right? So, that'll be the board's decision on how you want to do that, so.
You keep track of how much gravel's put on certain roads?
Absolutely.
Cost?
Yep, they monitor
We
every.
monitor for motor grader district,
Okay.
but we do the rock tickets we have are.
We'll show
identified
where
by
it
road.
went. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So he can tell you exactly how much gravel went on from St. Ignatius to High Bridge.
Right.
What is the mileage there, Lynn?
2.5.
2.5, right at
2.35.
2.5. 2 point what?
3, 4. That's the engineer.
So we actually started going out and drilling holes and measuring the rock thickness around the county too.
So
So we identified 2 roads, 2 greater districts that we've budgeted extra money to haul rock in those districts because we were at an inch of thickness or less,
Oh.
so.
who passes the basket on Sunday down there then? Is that where you start? Is that the plan?
All I need is $190,000 to do a mile. And I bet we could probably get more.
In all seriousness, I mean, yeah, I mean, we will certainly take a look and see
Yeah.
where we can start, and what our plan might be, and you know, like I said, if we can have a point system and judge you know, logically where our tax revenue is coming from, you know, I mean, there's all factors into that. I mean,
Yeah, if they're gonna pay for half of it, that probably changes the scenery a little bit.
I'm not saying that's out of line.
No, like I say, let us work on our road improvement policy. Like I say, that's one of the things that I've always kind of wanted to focus on is, and with my stint being mayor, I focused a lot on the roads and improving a lot of different streets in town, so I like that, and you get the more bang for your buck is the biggest thing we want to do. We want to benefit the most people in Jackson County, so it ain't gonna happen overnight, but moving slow and making sure we do something that goes across the county, it can be applied everywhere is kind of the goal, but you're also seeing some results and going from there.
And when I got the petition signed, for your benefit, I told these guys, don't call up these guys and chew their butts out every time they call them. Call and talk to them. I said, they know what the situation is. I mean, good criticism is good, but don't just call and say, hey, our road's a piece of shit. And I want you gonna do something.
I've got Paul's number.
Yeah.
No, it's.
But I appreciate it, guys. We don't want to take that whole day or either or, but.
We could volunteer to be part of the guinea pigs too if you want.
Thanks. The other stipulations that go along with there.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Have a
good day. All right, then, that was a good conversation. How far are you going? Yeah, I think you are.
But not done. For today.
I gotta come back in here though. Not in the boardroom.
Next Tuesday. you do.
Well, yeah, I'll be back here Friday.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right, next on my agenda, and I apologize, John, from the annual city council that we ran over a little bit on our last segment there, and I guess
that's fine.
that discussion we had to have. We don't want to hold you up, but
Nope, I
and John is here for discussion and possible action on the Andrew jail. So welcome, John, and good morning.
I'm on the city council and pro temp up there, and Mike Rader, the mayor, asked me to come down and talk to you guys about the jail that's in the city of Andrew. Give you a little background. I got on the city council in 2002, and we went through the Historic Society, everything we could to try to get funds to upgrade the jail. Then I got off the city council, and the new council, they hired this feasibility study and rehabilitation from Martin Gardner architect in 2019, and they come up with a lot of good ideas of restoring it back to its original jail facility, which is about $182,000. And they got another plan where it's a public-private partnership with the Airbnb. And so it's a nice study, but it went nowhere. So we've been kicking this can. The town of Andrew has been kicking this can down the road now for a long time. At one time, I was told this, I don't know if it's true, but at one time, the Jack Willie reached out as a supervisor and said that the board of supervisors might be interested in taking over the jail. And I
Jack's
don't-
not here.
I know.
I mean, we've had this discussion. I know about the study. I was up there. We all toured it. We are aware of that. I guess just like the last situation we talked about, it's all about this.
There you go.
Yeah,
And the Historic Society does not, I mean, they give you a lot of good advice, but
Yeah.
there's no teeth to it.
and I think that study was a grant that we got from somebody, if I remember right, you know,
It
2 or
is
3 years
correct.
ago, but
Yeah.
we went through the basement and, yeah, we went through the whole thing. I mean, it's very, very interesting.
Yep.
And we talked about the bed and breakfast and the Airbnb and you know, the history behind it, you know, one of the oldest limestone buildings that's in the state.
Right.
We talked about all that. On the other hand, John, I guess I'm trying to build a new facility also, so.
Right.
It's
So the reason why I'm coming to you, I told Mike, I got a 3-pronged approach. Number one, would be the easiest for Andrews, give you guys the building. Okay? Or number two, that we have a working relationship and maybe matching funds, city and county, where I got a bid to do the most extreme work that needs to be done right now is the roof, gutters, get the water away from the foundation. And that's about 40,000 plus the windows. that's about 40,000. I haven't went to the city council and said, hey, if we get 20, maybe we get a partnership with the supervisors for 20. And that starts we're not no longer kicking the can down the road, we're addressing the issue, the most serious issues first. Or the third thing is to totally take it off the Historic Society, which I've researched, and you can take it off the Historic Society and reach out to public, somebody buy it, and they turn into B&B or whatever. It hurts my heart that it's sitting there and year after year it deteriorates and we can't do nothing for it. So the least of the one that I don't want to see it get sold to a public entity. However, if they can come in and fix it up and turn it into something that's nice for the community, I'm all for it. But I think there's an avenue that we can approach to get us there. So I'm here to seek input. from
I
you
guess
guys.
when I hear you say that part of it, I mean, of course, we know where it's situated there. I mean, that's city property, of course, and so is the park adjacent to it.
Yes, sir.
And the fire station behind it, the old fire station, I should say, or both of them pretty close there, but.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I guess if you had an agreement with a potential buyer, it'd be different to what his use might be. It'd have to be in the agreement, of course, that he
Of course.
couldn't
Yeah.
tear it down, or you have to redo it in X amount of years, or whatever it may be. It's just, I think it would be really difficult for the county to take on that responsibility right now. I don't want to be negative.
No,
Anyway. I mean, it's a structure, you're not gonna find anywhere else, and if you go upstairs and look at these cells and whatnot, it's really interesting, but, and there's other artifacts in there that are really interesting.
Yes.
You talk to the Jackson County Economic Alliance, cause I just think in Macokota, even in Bellevue, the catalyst grants that they got, like 110 South Main. The Mitchell Mastery Building, where the city, I know the city kicked in a matching part of that, I think it was to get the $100,000 grant, you had to put in $50,000 or $100,000 from the city. But that saved what we call 110 South Main, which is now the brewery, things like that was getting ready to fall in. So that's a grant through the state, and they were kind of spearheads on trying to doing the grant applications and all that stuff.
That's Jackson County
Economic Alliance. Yeah.
You know, are they local or?
Yeah,
Yeah, they're right over here.
They're over there at the Smiles on Main building. They're in one of the suites. I forget what suite they're
I
in.
think they're in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would talk to them, Kelly, Brewer would be your name.
And I think,
4549.
Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, or if your memory is good, better than mine.
4549.
Didn't ECA get involved in this a little bit? See if they could look for grant money also at that time?
Well, and didn't historic preservation also get involved?
I think so.
I think.
But that's just a grant that's a yearly, you put into the state. If you get it, you don't. Jackson County's been notoriously had good luck applying for those grants. I think last year, I forget how many they gave, or the year before, I don't know how many they gave out, and we got 3 of them. One in Sebula, a couple in Macokota, Bellevue got some, and that's exactly what it is try to fix up, but again. You need an end plan, you can't just say we wanna fix up a building and leave it rot.
No, we would like to be a viable, whether a tourist come in or something viable to bring people into our community as well.
I actually I also thought had somebody checking into the brownfield type thing, dilapidated type buildings. That they want to restructure or rehabilitate. And I don't think I got anywhere with that either. I remember that from years ago, but.
But I think
I
Kelly
mean,
Brown would, at JCEA would be a great first stepping point, to kind of figure out, because again, like with Mitchell Mastery, nobody wanted to see that mill go away. The Catalyst grant came in, but it's a private entity now, there's apartments upstairs, they got retail space downstairs, you're gonna have to come up with something because, just keeping something because it's old and kind of historic ain't financially feasible.
No, and it doesn't bring in revenue.
Right,
You know.
and so selling it to a public entity like Joe Schmo wants to make it an Airbnb. That Catalyst grant was kind of transferable, that's how it kind of went. There was a whole package deal with Mitchell Masteries to help that package come through, was we had a developer, the grant was coming through with the match. So that if you guys have funds, instead of just putting on new gutters, maybe those funds can go with the match to get the Catalyst grant, because now all of a sudden it's 140,000 versus just the 40,000, you know what I mean? So.
Okay.
that would be something to definitely look into, and I think that actually would be a semi-feasible unless the state has cut back that program. That would be something I would seriously look into.
Okay,
You know, even the fact too, you might be able to use like in-kind donations, you know, or because, you know, you talk about the roof, is it something that you can get viable people in there? I mean, of course, it's a safety issue too. To stick a metal roof on it, and do you want a metal roof on it? Don't,
I do. The Historic Society says, no, we want a metal roof.
Yeah.
It lasts a lot longer,
Yeah.
but.
You can get metal roofs that look like rock or
Yeah.
whatever, you know.
Yeah. So if I'm reading it right, you guys don't want the building?
Not at this time, I don't think we do it. I guess it'd be a conversation for us to have. We'd certainly be interested in entertaining, you know, if you come up with something with a grant, you know, a 50-50 something, I don't know. It's something we'd have to talk about.
Okay,
You know, you're gonna have to get public input also, you know, it's not like.
Something
we
else I'd
just-
look into is environmental impact studies, phase 1, phase 2 studies, because I know when the city took on the Clinton engines. The contamination under the ground, they did those studies, so they became not financially responsible for the contamination because it was known it was there. So I would look at a phase 1 study, I think 2,000 bucks. I mean, phase 1 study, I don't think is too expensive. Phase 2, depending on what they find, might not be necessary, but that can alleviate some concerns and stuff. And but that would be something I definitely check into, because again, anybody's gonna wanna know. And you know,
you already got that knocked out.
So I
Kelly
guess-
is not in the Smiles on Main. She was moving at one point. I don't know. when
I don't
that-
think they moved yet.
I think there's still a lot of construction going on in
Right.
the
120.
Well, that'd be my first reach out.
And I don't believe Kelly was here the last time we entertained the idea or talked about that. There was a different director over there, whatever position name is, but I would talk to, yeah, I would go over there. That's a good start, I would say.
Okay. All right,
And certainly if you have something put together with somebody, you know, come back to us and see what we can do, but at this point, we're in the process of building a new facility.
I know. Money's tight everywhere around, but
Yeah.
I just don't wanna keep kicking the can down the road. I
Yeah.
wanna try to get something rolling on this. It's a good old facility, and so I appreciate your time.
And we appreciate your interest in it, you know, so just don't
Thank you.
go on the back burner and
keep us informed and let me know what could, because I sit on that board, so
I will.
let me know what they say.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Have a good day.
yeah, thank you, John.
Thanks.
So if we may, we could probably jump around a little bit if it's okay with everybody concerned. I see Jack and a familiar face back here, and Lynn are on the agenda at 10:10. It is 10:10, so I guess if you would like to join us, we would gladly take your input right now. And we're joined by Jack Willie and Lynn both, Jackson County Courthouse Coordinated Disability Services, and for the Mental Health and Disability Services of Jackson County. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Guess we didn't talk about how we're gonna share this, so I'll start and Jack can fill in. So we are here again, we try to make it the day after the Mental Health Regions Governing Board meeting, which is monthly, typically on the third Monday of the month. And so Jack and I attended, just to remind the audience that Jack has been designated, appointed by the Board of Supervisors to serve as their designee to this governing board at this point in time. So the governing board is very happy to see Jack return. It's a difficult board to just jump in the middle of, so I appreciate, Nan, that you were able to join by Zoom, and I understand you're gonna try to do that as much as you can and become familiar with it. So I think we have a really good transition plan within our county. So the meeting, the day actually started with an advisory board meeting at 1 o'clock, which Jack also serves on, and it's an adult and children's advisory board. We're combining those two groups. These advisory boards are required by Iowa code to have for the mental health region. And that agenda was primarily a review from Christine Grader, who visited with the previous board in December to talk about children's services. She's our children's care coordinator for the region. And then a review of an annual report that we needed to submit to the state of Iowa every year by December 1st in the previous fiscal year. And then also Lori Elam, the region CEO, discussed a little bit about the FY 24 budget and the process that's going on with that. So most of what was covered there was also covered in the board meeting, so you did have access to most of it. And so at the board meeting itself, typically it starts with the region's fiscal agent. And just as a reminder, Scott County is designated as the fiscal agent for our region, which means they're responsible for holding all of our money, receiving the state payments, and then payment of bills on a monthly basis. And then they also reimburse back to the counties for our administrative expenses, because they are currently still paid out from each county. Because, for example, my position as a county employee, my employer of record is Jackson County. So my all administrative expenses are paid by Jackson County, and then a monthly invoice is submitted to the region for reimbursement. And as far as I know, Lisa, that's going okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that process would have just started the 1st of July when we went to 100% state funded. So David Farmer is the the budget manager for Scott County, and he is also our region's fiscal agent out of Scott County. He gives a monthly report. The highlights of that report typically refer to what our expenses year to date, what's our revenue year to date, obviously, and then a projection as far as where we think we will end up with our fund balance at the end of the fiscal year. By Iowa code, it's defined at the end of fiscal year 23, we're to be at 20% of what our expenses will be for the upcoming year. That's our target. Right now, we are way above that target. We're about 68%. That is largely due to our budget has not been used as fully as we had anticipated, primarily from the contract we have with Robert Young Center to do our crisis services. That contract is about $10.6 million out of the region's $16.5 million annual budget. And within that Robert Young contract, there are a number of children's services that were anticipated to be started this fiscal year. There's been a significant delay in getting a couple of the more costly services started. So for example, one of them is a crisis bed residential base, which means it's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week program that has to be fully staffed. If a child is in crisis, one of the options to help alleviate that crisis is for the child to go to a stabilization bed staffed by several different levels of trained staff. That program is not started yet. It's going to be run by Family Resources, who has the subcontract with Robert Young Center. Now I thought they were fully staffed, but then I kind of got the indication they might still be short one staff yesterday. A program like that has to be fully staffed before they can even open it, because you can't run a third shift and be missing a person, obviously. And that's a costly program. So that's an example of why that Robert Young contract, their year-to-date expenses are only at about a 50% expenditure rate compared to their budgeted expenses through December 31st. But that program is one example of why there's a delay in that. The annual report was given to the board, and I can get copies of any of these documents that you might want. This is the report that is a reflection back on fiscal year 2022. Gets sent to DHHS and they give their approval. Yesterday, the governing board and the advisory board gave both their approval to have the final report submitted. I would say a lion's share of the discussion yesterday at the meeting was about a report that was created by DHHS in January 2023, this month, and it's submitted to the governor and to the legislature, and it's a review of the DHHS's view of how things are going at the region level. And so when you were introduced yesterday, there's a lot of frustration with this report. I have copies of the report. I'll leave them with Luann to give to you if you want to review it. It's a review of where things are at, and it's also recommendations from DHHS to the legislature for this session. This report, Jack was just mentioning that you kind of heard yesterday from an elected official.
Well, I was talking to Dan Serp at the Early Church Iowa meeting, and he said that Tom Detterman had talked to them yesterday and said that he was told he should bring 2 lunches yesterday to the Capitol because they would probably be there till after midnight. And some of the things in this report, basically, we've talked about before about maybe the elimination of the governing board, since we don't have any skin in the game anymore, supposedly, since we're not funding. But it doesn't indicate that in the report, but it does indicate a total revamping of the boards. And they talked about possibly only one member from a board of supervisors would be on, somebody from law enforcement, probably somebody from a provider, possibly somebody that is receiving services, and a total change. And I guess the frustration yesterday at the meeting was, what are they doing about, Iowa's always been local control. And this is totally taking away local control by eliminating the boards of supervisor members. And so there was much discussion about that. And Dan said that he was afraid they might even act on it last night, since they were going to be handling a lot of stuff. And Lori told us at the meeting, this will probably move fast. We don't know how fast. We were hoping that it would be, I think next week you go to Des Moines for anyway, Jim Irwin, who gets on the bandwagon and really delves into things very seriously. He and Lori were going to put together a paper that he could present at the representatives, to the representatives through the various supervisors and from the public, outlining what in this report is wrong and what we do not like about this report. And it's going to be worse than I had anticipated it might be if this passes. So we don't know if that's going to happen.
As far as services provided, or what area, I guess you're
Just
saying?
oversee the oversight.
Overseeing the region.
Yeah,
And they're talking about eliminating, going from 14 regions to 7. They also talked about Lori said the one thing that we have in our favor is the fact that one of the criteria they would all be in, the members would all be in the same judicial district. And we're the 7th judicial district, and that's all of our counties that are on our, plus population 300,000 or more. And ours is 300,000 and more. So those two criterias we would meet immediately because we're 7th judicial and the population is so. So she said, we should be pretty safe in not being merged with somebody else, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't do that. But the thing that we've always dealt with is, now that we're not funding it, is looking at and providing the services that are needed. And we contract those services. And, I guess our comments were that, who better serves our citizens in our counties than the boards of supervisors providing these services and what's needed. So there was a lot of steam rolling out of people's ears yesterday because they were extremely upset. And they were extremely upset with the lack of appreciation to what the boards and the CEOs are doing for the mental health services in Jackson and all of the state and all of our 5 counties. Because we have been providing the services, we have been negotiating, and as Lynn said, the main reason that we're over on our ending balance is because a lot of the providers don't have the people to provide the service. They had a kind of a layout in here of what services you were doing, and they had yeses and nos and all of this, and there were several no's for our Eastern Iowa region. But Lori said, we've sent out our request for proposals for all of those, and they can't get anybody to respond back. So you can't provide the service if you don't have the people to provide it. So it was a very, very stressful meeting yesterday because we're doing everything right. And we don't know, we can't understand where the legislators or the Department of Human Services is coming from.
So obviously our concern is that this is the recommendation coming from the State Department, which is a larger department now because they combined their efforts with Iowa Department of Public Health and with Department of Aging. And there's, from what was pointed out yesterday, there's a number of newly elected officials in Des Moines who obviously are in the beginning of their learning curve of what it means to serve in Des Moines. And so their ability to sort through some of this will be more challenged because of they're just learning the system itself. And so the fear is that there might be an inclination to just take the recommendations as are presented on the trust that the State Department recommendations are what the state of Iowa needs. A couple of examples on where you'll see some services in there. There's an employment, a vocational service called supported employment, and it's always been geared towards adults to get into some kind of reimbursable employment. But it's listed in the table, you'll see that we're not doing that for children. Well, supported employment has never been a type of a service that has been associated with children's services before. And if there are vocational programs, typically they're coming through school systems. And we've had that in our school systems in this county for a number of years. There is a program called therapeutic foster care. But when the CEOs would ask Department of Health and Human Services the definition of therapeutic foster care, they were unable to obtain a definition of what that is. And we already experienced that a little bit with our current state contract with the state of Iowa, which will have to be renewed effective July 1st. One of the 4 outcome measures that the state wants regions to account for is jail diversion. Jail diversion is a very broad term and can look very differently, approach it differently, and outcomes to try to achieve differently. And the state's never been able to give us a definition of jail diversion. So we're not really sure where that's going to land. We did a time study that in late November, early December that I've mentioned before. And like in my role and my counterparts in the 4 other counties, we had to distinguish between what they call administrative expense and then service coordination. So working specifically with individuals, which is very minimal in my role here in this county. But the state, again, never came up with a really good definition of service coordination or service management, as they call it, comparing it to what they considered to be the definition of administration. So those are some examples of some of the concerns that we have about how things will be implemented. Is there going to be a common understanding of some of those things?
I think one of the things too that we were talking about yesterday, and then was part of the conversation, was that there's 57 new legislators just in the House. And how can they absorb this and understand this? And we're just concerned that they'll just follow the lead and vote with the others that seem to know what they're doing.
I can certainly see that happen. I mean, you've always advocated, Jack. I mean, we've always advocated for local control, but then again, you've always stated that since we have regionalized, that you said the services are much better, that we couldn't
We
afford.
couldn't have afforded the services that we have provided now.
Right.
There's no way Jackson County could have done that. And as I stated way back when I was a part of the rulemaking, I fought it. But then when I realized what it could do for the citizens of Jackson County, I did a complete flip. And I was very excited about the regions because then we would have additional funding, and we've provided things like, one of the things that Christina talked about is this challenge to change in the schools. 125 schools, 22 school districts, and they're all on board to work this through. Another was in trauma trauma in society is going to be a program that will be given to the 11th graders in all of the schools. It's brain and body, learn about trauma, mental health, and well-being. And they had a session where they had a training for the challenge to change, which was also talked about in here. And they had 100 slots for people to be trained to do the challenge for change, and it was full. And so now they're asking for additional slots so they can do some more training for the school faculty or providers of this service in the school. So there's so many good things happening, and I see Brent came in, and one of the things they talked about too was Solutions Plus was a law enforcement training, crisis intervention training, and that was in September in Macokota.
Yes.
And several of our law enforcement officers went. They're having another training in the near future. And I believe Lynn said that several of the jailers were signing up for that school. So, and this has been a priority of the region for a long time, because a lot of the law enforcement didn't know how to handle these people. And if they get into the jail and then they're taken to the hospital, and if they are taken to the Jackson County Regional Health Center, there's nobody there that can help them. So they have to sit there and wait and wait and wait. And while they're there, a deputy has to be with them. So we're trying to really get some training so that they do know what to do and how to follow through. So there's a lot of good things happening, and I'm just concerned that what the Department of Human Services is promoting will only take us back and not forward.
Well, here's my hope, that in your years of service, Jack, that you do have a few connections and let your voice be heard out there.
And I did specifically ask Lori yesterday in the meeting that we had at 1 o'clock, that I think most of you know, I'm not afraid to talk. And I am on the Department of Human Services
Right.
Council.
Right.
And we're in the process right now of deciding what the membership on that council is going to be, because it'll be merged with the Department of Health. So they have a much larger governing board than we do on the Department of Human Services. There's only seven of us on that, and I think there's 11 or 12 on the Department of Health's board. And so we're trying to intermingle and look at what the criteria for membership should be and what the appropriate number might be. And I said to Lori, I said, I'm not afraid to address that board on our concerns about this report. Lori can't, because I didn't realize till yesterday, she has that paid by the state.
Well, I think what she was saying was, all of the money that pays all of her salaries now are state dollars.
State dollars.
She is still a Scott County
And so
employee.
he said she has to be extremely cautious about what she said.
As a con.
The rest of us, we don't have to worry about that, because we're there for nothing. I mean, we don't get any stipend for
You're
doing
gonna cut your
that.
pay?
Yeah, gotta pay, Mike. But anyway, I was really impressed with the meeting yesterday, and impressed with our board members and their willingness to really speak out. And hopefully, I know they're trying to get some material ready for Jim to take next week for your state board meeting, so that we can at least try to educate the legislators, and hopefully we're not too late. Hopefully this information will get out before they vote on this package.
Yeah.
Because the package is going to, as far as I'm concerned, the package is going to hurt the services that are currently being provided. And I
Yeah, we
don't know
certainly don't want to
Linfield.
take a step backwards in where you've gone and what you've done and where the region has gone in the services. I know that some of these services have not been implemented, and it's hard to sustain them once you get them implemented, so I guess it's a big picture.
So one other thing in the report that I want to give it to you, I think you might find interesting if you read it, is one of the recommendations is to require community-based restoration for individuals who have committed a crime and have been deemed not capable of standing trial, and to restore their capacity in order to make them eligible or able to go through a trial, but that be done in the community, and that the regions are responsible for doing that.
But again, you gotta have resources to do that.
Well, right, and so the backside to this is the DHHS director is Kelly Garcia, and she comes from Texas, and apparently this is the model that they use in Texas. that would be a very big lift for all the mental health regions to be tasked with the responsibility to develop community-based restoration programs, competency for competency.
Especially with the
So-
lack of workforce that there is out there.
Yeah. So we'll see where that all goes. On a good note, to end this on a good note, as Jack referenced, Solution Point Plus is the company that our region has contracted with to do trainings primarily to emergency response personnel, in particular law enforcement. Just last week, there were 4 jailers, 4 correctional officers from our jail that attended what was called a wellness and resiliency training for 2 days. And I just talked to Andrew and he said the officers were they thought it was a very good training, and that was what Lori had indicated in her report yesterday as well. So those trainings are being accessed by law enforcement in Jackson County, which I'm really happy to see occur both through the sheriff's department, and then Bellevue PD send a couple of officers to the crisis intervention training or CIT training, and that's where there's another one scheduled for a week in March and another one a week in Muscatine County. And we have 2 more years on this contract to get these trainings from this company, so that definitely is, I think, viewed as a good resource. So, any questions?
That's certainly a positive, you know, to see that we're involved and being stay involved. I remember
Mhm.
training years ago down in Devonport, and we didn't have anybody down there from our service, so. I
Mhm.
mean, that was a lot of individuals and law enforcement people there, so.
Yeah,
It's nice to hear that they're, you know, participating in that program and.
Well, I was delighted that that was a priority for the sheriff. Brent really felt that it was important that the sheriff and the deputies and the jailers have some training so that they know what to do and when to do it and how to do it.
It's ongoing and it's not getting any better the way it sounds, so.
No, it's not.
and those trainings the cost of the training itself is free to any department that participates, and mileage and meals are reimbursed. So it's,
A token. But it's nice to hear
Right.
that
Mhm.
we are participating, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
and what did you think of the meeting?
Well,
that you
I'm
listened-
hoping that we're all wrong and this is gonna end up being a good thing,
yeah, I'm with you.
you know? We can hope and pray, but yeah, that part really kind of scares me because as we all know, we definitely need these services in this community.
Well, the services will stay to some degree. The concern is what will the state impose on regions as far as how
What
they
you
are to
have
be
to-
implemented.
Right,
Yeah,
what you
Yeah.
have to do, and
yeah,
they gotta be able to be implemented in a way that we can implement them. You
right,
know,
right,
And you have to have the manpower to do
Right.
it.
you
yeah,
know, if they make. Whatever, that we can't get the manpower or get the correct staff to implement them,
mhm,
then that service isn't gonna be here, and we
right.
all know if it's not local. They're not gonna travel far to get it either, you know? so-
And that was one of the points made yesterday by several supervisors at the meeting, yeah. There's concern, I think, statewide, just in a broader picture for you guys to be aware of. They're also looking at, I think, the DHHS regions. Even the judicial districts, as Jack
Judicial,
mentioned, the
yeah.
mental health regions, and the bigger the regions get, the bigger disadvantage that is to rural Iowa, I feel, without a doubt.
Yeah. because-
So,
So they certainly encouraged us yesterday to have our boards of supervisors contact their legislators and give them their opinion on what the proposals are. You'll have an opportunity to look at that, and then I would certainly, I know I'm gonna be calling mine and just let them know that there are some real concerns about this, and the big thing is, why are you taking away our local control?
If I could make a couple points on this from the audience, so one, yeah, the critical incident training, the reason it's so important is because the officers that come in contact with these people, we've gotten called there. Or, you know, we see them or whatever, we come across them, we're the first line psychologists for these people, and that's what we have to try to calm them down. Get them to come down to a level where you can reason with them and try to work with them before it goes south and something goes wrong and somebody gets hurt. So that's why it's important. I would actually like to be a part of this meeting if I could get invited. And the third thing, and Lynn's working on this, but now the new thing we've run into is on our committals even, I, as the sheriff's office, get a committal from the court, whether it's for substance abuse or mental or whatever it is. Then, so I'm ordered to go pick this person up and take them to a hospital to get them evaluated, to get medically released, to then go on to, if it's substance abuse, go down to CADS in Davenport, Country Oaks. But because of this staffing issue that we're talking about, and I missed the lion's share of the first part of the conversation, but CADS no longer can staff a nurse on staff in the afternoons or on the weekends or anything, so they cannot take the person down there. So then when the person is in for substance abuse, they have to detox at a hospital first. Jackson County Regional Hospital is not set up to let someone detox in their emergency room. So now we're trying to work with like Mercy One out of Clinton County, their hospital down there, to be able to take them there out of our county to their county hospital and have them detox there, and then either work it out to where when the nurse is available at CADS, move them on to there, or Mercy One in Clinton could have a bed there if they have one available. But I, as the sheriff, get stuck in between where I pick this person up. I have an order. I have to execute the order from the court. I cannot deny executing this order. Now I have this person. I can't go to my own regional hospital, so I have to go to Clinton County with them. And because there's staffing issues throughout these private industries, I get stuck with this person. What am I supposed to do? I can't take them to jail. That's not where they belong. That's not where the order says to take them. Am I supposed to take them home with me? What am I supposed to do with them? So these are the issues we're dealing with these mental health issues. And I don't know what I'm supposed to do yet to this day. So, I mean, that's.
Well, hopefully we can get some direction and they will try to figure out, you know, I mean, they have to certainly understand rural Iowa and where we sit, you know, as far as services, where you have to go, and our staff and your staff, and we can't have somebody sitting with an individual for 8 to 10 hours or whatever it might be. Or where do you take them? I guess they gotta have a better plan than that if they're gonna.
Well, by default, they would end up, see, if I could back up just a little bit, this problem came up in about late November, early December, when CADS did not have the nurses to be available to do the medical detox. It all started with the lack of availability to do medical detox. And this conversation is kind of a county conversation as opposed to the mental health region. The mental health region is not involved specifically with the substance abuse committals. We are with the mental health ones, not with the substance. So yeah, then as Brent described it, the challenge is if we get somebody where there's a commitment filed for a substance abuse only, typically sheriff's office was able to pick that person up wherever they were in the community and take them right to CADS. We did not have to stop at the hospital for medical detox for a substance abuse commitment because we knew at CADS they had the medical capacity to deal with the detox. Is that fair enough to say in your experience?
Pretty much.
Yeah. So now
You get people that would want us to transfer them right there, and it's like, we can't do that because you're not going to a hospital.
Yeah. So, I've been in conversation, I think if I can get one more conversation scheduled with Medical Associates in Dubuque and Mercy One in Clinton and Dubuque. Medical Associates Department of Psychiatry now provides the inpatient psychiatric services for Mercy One in Clinton, and they have historically for Mercy One in Dubuque. And I think if I can get the hospitals agreeable, meaning Mercy's, to take these commitments from Jackson County, from outside their counties into their ED, that's the conversation I'm waiting to have Mercy and Medical Associates get scheduled. And hopefully we can enter into that. In the meantime, I have not heard anything real favorable, just for your information, Brent, too, that Robert Young Center, who manages Country Oaks and CADS, that they've been successful in getting nurses back on board to do the medical detox, so.
Well, yesterday at our advisory committee, we had 2 providers of services, and both of them said they cannot get nurses.
Right.
And the one said that they used to get some from St. Ambrose that were students, and they kind of helped with stuff, but she said that in the past, there's usually like 29, 30, 35 in the nursing program. I think she said there were only 16 in their nursing program at St. Ambrose, and they're not going out and doing this. And so she said, both of the ladies said, we're having a terrible time getting nurses.
Yeah.
So it was like an intern type program or something to where they could.
Yeah, it was, I was in a meeting a couple weeks ago and Julie Tashuk from Cedar County, my counterpart there, and I were sitting at a table and the nurse was there from the Bettendorf School District. And she was saying that St. Ambrose typically would contact her about having nursing students do an internship in the school district. And that historically, they would have somewhere around 40 students. And they contacted the schools this year and said they only had 19 in their program, and so they did not have the nurses to disseminate through the internship program. And Pathway Living Center, an agency in Clinton that serves primarily individuals with serious mental health concerns, was indicating that they typically have 2 social work interns, 1 each semester, in their program, and they have not had social work interns looking for placements for the last couple of years. So that workforce shortage, you know, we're concerned about the people we currently have, but even people going into the program's not happening. But yeah, the commitment thing, the only good thing, Brent, I think is it working out better that you don't have to necessarily stay in the emergency department if somebody is there under a hold for a mental health commitment, unless there are behaviors or concerns about safety.
Yeah, that's definitely been a help. We still have we've had a juvenile out there lately that we kept a jailer on just because of how they were acting and stuff. So there's still the
Yeah,
1s and 2s that
yeah,
they're so far out of line that, you know, we probably can't comfortably in good faith leave and just be like, good luck. So.
right.
Yeah, so,
But, yeah, that was something that had been worked out with hospital administration, that they were going to kind of determine in case by case if they felt they needed law enforcement presence, and so that has, it sounds like, alleviated some of your need to be there.
yeah, previously we would have somebody man them 24 hours a day until they moved on. But that also takes away, you know, Lynn helps out and pays that when it's mental health anyway, she pays that out of her budget, so the money helps our budget. But then at the end of the week, when they're into overtime, because they've gone past their hours of the week, it's costing us overtime. But it's also, it pulls from my pool of people to work in the jail. So, you know, you only have so many eggs in the basket, and when they've worked so many hours a week, you can't work them anymore, or they refuse to, because they're already well into overtime. You know, I've only got so many resources, it's like what we were just talking about, so.
And this is not, this challenge is not specific, as you would understand, to our county. I mean,
Right.
kind of a lay of the land. Not that we like it, but.
Well, we sure appreciate your input and your
I would just say in
Well-
closing that when we get a statement or some information from Lori,
pass that along.
we
Yeah.
will make Luann. We'll get a copy of it from Lynn. And please let your legislators know that it's not a good deal.
And thank you, Jack, and thank your board for their steady input on that, and
Have a good day.
good, thanks.
Thanks.
All right, so
Back to that.
we're only an hour behind, I think. Lisa, does Todd have to go? Does he want that contract signed or was?
No, he wants the rockers.
Oh,
Kind of need to put them in before I can give them to him.
okay, so, Beth? Do you need to take a recess or does he have to?
No,
Okay.
no.
I didn't know if he was on a schedule either.
He's gonna be
Good.
presenting them next week.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Are you guys ready? You all have the copies?
We do.
All right. So I highlighted the numbers that we're really looking at that match in different colors to try to make it easier for you guys. The first page is a spreadsheet I put together that shows the auditor's ledger balance, any outstanding warrants as of 12/31/22, and then my balance. And that's for every fund that we have. So that's the first 2 pages. It's continued on to the second page, and at the bottom, you'll see the totals. So the 23,074.29.61 is the auditor's balance. Plus the outstanding warrants that we show equals my balance of $23,548,475.80. So that green highlighting number there is the one that we're looking at throughout the packet here. And that is the combined balance that we have to keep, or that we needed to get to as of 12/31. So this third page is the other half of the spreadsheet here that I put together as of 12/31. That just breaks down the cash and the checking to show that's where I come up with that balance. 23,548, 475.80. Fourth page then goes on to break it down and add in any pending interest that was at 12/31/22. So you'll see that number of 23,528.76.85. And that one is also gonna show up again on my daily balance sheet in orange. That's gonna be the number that we have as cash in banks. And this next page here, the first page is the semi-annual report. This is what gets published in the newspaper. So the funds are listed, the balance of the July, the first column, revenues, disbursements, expenses, and then the fund balance as of December. You'll see that green again, same number, and then again, the outstanding auditors warrants at that point in time listed there. So I did print as well the revenues and expenses. That's what follows behind that. It's just broken out. If you guys wanted to review it, I wasn't sure, so I just included it. But you'll see the revenues on page 2 and 3, and then the expenses start on page 4 of that report. And then carry through to the totals on the page 5. And again, we'll show that I'm verifying the balance on hand as of 12/31 was the 23,548,475. The next page is a spreadsheet that I do every day. It's our daily balancing sheet. So I've highlighted the numbers that we used for that last day. This one is a little bit different because of the way that our holidays fell and I think it was payroll that had to come out, payroll or claims, whichever one still processed on that Friday, even though we weren't open. So I did have to balance that in yet at the end of the year. So you'll see the cash in office number of 27,598.95 in yellow. And then again, that number in orange of cash in bank, and the green of 23,548,475.80 is where we came up with that number. Some new numbers that we're looking at now at the bottom in blue show what was pending at the time of balancing. So that would be online payments for taxes and registrations, auto registrations, the debit card in office transactions, and the credit card in office transactions are the 3 numbers in blue at the bottom. That is something that the state auditors look at, so we have to include it. The banking and investments balance sheet is next. So this just shows the balances in the accounts at that time. So you'll see the CDs are listed on as investment accounts. And then the checking accounts are up top under bank accounts. Those two totals do add up to the 23,528.76.80, which you do see again, that orange number that we've looked at already on the daily balance sheet as well. And then this is just continuing on to break down the number we've already looked at. Year-end cash checks and investments on hand. This is a breakdown of the actual cash that we have in office. The 3,000 breakdown of that, that's what we balance to every day for actual cash. The next page is the checking accounts up top, investment accounts down bottom, and then the CDs are broken out separately on the next page to show you the balance of those. And those numbers again, I'll show up on the full spreadsheet that we've already looked at. And then this is, the next two pages are the breakdown of the blue numbers where you have the debit card transactions and credit card transactions and the web payments. Again, I have to break this out because the auditors asked for it. And then the last page is another spreadsheet that we do. This kind of pulls all the numbers together for the auditors. They request this spreadsheet to put it out in a nice little bundle for them. But you'll see all the numbers that we've talked about already in orange, blue, yellow, and green.
So are we sitting where you think we should, better or worse?
It's about the same, yeah. I mean, that extra jail bond makes a difference that we have that money. But yeah, this is pretty much standard for what I've seen so far.
You didn't have to pick up collection to balance then, or? is that-
No. No,
Okay,
we
well,
didn't
that's
have
positive.
to. Yeah, and then I'll get signatures if I can.
You need a motion to accept and authorize the publication.
I'll make that motion to accept and authorize the publication.
Okay,
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second to accept the auditors or the treasurer's semi-annual report as presented and for publication. All those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed nay. Motion carried. Thank you, Beth, for the report and look it over. If we have any other questions in the past, I guess we'll address them then. Everything looks like they're on the up and up.
I was like, that would be weird if I didn't.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Those three right there is for the supervisors.
That's it, just the one?
Yep, just the one.
Okay,
Moving on.
Lisa,
Mine's easy today.
thank goodness.
I just need a motion to approve the minutes of the January 17th, 2023 board proceedings as written by Auditor Smith and authorize publication in the official newspapers.
Second,
I got a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the January 17th meeting as presented. All those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed nay. Motion carried.
That's all that I have for the board today.
You win the teddy bear.
I do.
I almost got the paper.
All right, we would invite Luann, our executive assistant, to present business.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I think it's still morning. Okay, later tonight at 6 o'clock will be the Jackson County Conference Board meeting downstairs in the community room for all of you. Tomorrow, Wednesday, January 25th at 6
Good.
p.m. Yeah, I think that's gonna be 9 a.m.
I believe so.
for the Iris meeting. Sorry about that. In Dubuque, or by Zoom for NIN. At 6:30 is a municipal league banquet at Kalmus's in St. Canidas from Height.
So it's our meeting and banquet, yeah, for the end of the year.
Right. And at 7 o'clock, he's gonna have to leave early because he's got to go to the Jackson County
he's going for the
emergency
free food.
EMS.
I don't get that, just the mayor's get that, by the way.
Get ready.
So that's pay for mine, I'm going. Then you think you can make the MS meeting or?
where's the hell?
It's just
Springbrook,
Springbrook First Responders is what.
so it'd be the
Said.
fire station upstairs, I would imagine, yeah. I appreciate that, I might. I
There
know
is
Becky attended, we attended the last one together for the coordinator, or the director of Ryan's position, and I don't think she's got that review out yet, so. I might touch base with Becky on that, and maybe she can. Yeah,
Okay, Thursday, January 26th at 9 AM is an RPA meeting in Dubuque, and I think, is that Don's now, or is it Nin's? Who has RPA? Well, and then right after that, at 10 o'clock is a training session for 2 hours for RTA and RPA.
Isn't RPA both, all three of them?
RTA is all. RPA is just one of you, unless RTA appoints one of you to be on the RPA board, which they haven't done so far, so. And then it,
I honestly think that Larry and Jack both went to the RPA.
Yeah, well, and at
But-
that last meeting, she said you'll be at that, and so. I'm gonna go, and if she kicks me out, I guess I'll go sit in my car.
No, I think the committees, unless
Right.
there was two positions.
Right.
maybe an alternate position.
No,
Well, there was originally because Larry was the RTA's appointment to RPA. Yeah, that's why it's confusing.
It
I
is
agree.
confusing, but I know we said that Don would be up there, and she said, well, you'll be up here too, Nin, so. Like I said, I'll go, and if they don't want me, I'll leave, because I gotta be up there at 10 o'clock anyhow,
exactly.
so I'm not gonna be out anything.
And then when you get back from that, starting at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we will have budget work sessions in here and try to pretty much finish off anybody we still need to have a budget work session with, and then maybe proceed to work on the supervisor's budget, so. Friday, January 27th at 11 o'clock is an Isaac's executive meeting by Zoom for Mike. He's now on that Isaac's executive board. Monday, January 30th at 10 AM is the Canadian Pacific meeting, at a meeting with Canadian Pacific reps in Bellevue for Mike. And at 1 o'clock, it's a Waste Authority of Jackson County meeting for Mike back here at the courthouse.
Friday, 27th at 7 AM is the Macoka leadership.
That's correct, 7 AM.
And you were gonna go to that. Yeah, thank you.
Our next regular meeting will be Tuesday, January 31st at 9 AM. And that evening from 5 to 8 PM will be the ISU Extensions Planning and Zoning Training Session. For any of you that want to attend that.
Okay,
All right. Under my portion for today, the first order of business is discussion possible action on the sale of the Welcome Center property.
okay, so just an update here on last week at the January 17th meeting, we actually had a contract presented to us and we viewed it in closed section because we're still under negotiations. So we pretty much accepted the terms of the contract other than the purchase price. So we countered the purchase price to the buyer. The buyer has since accepted that purchase price. So I'm looking to move forward with the process of the sale. Again, we're still in negotiations pending the financing approval from the buyer and title.
We have to complete the survey we said we would do before the sale can go through.
We have to do a public hearing. We have to first have a motion to proceed with the sale of the Welcome Center. And then we'll have to have a motion to have the public hearing. Again,
Keep going.
as far as negotiations, we're still basically in negotiation because of the financing approval and title opinion work. As far as the deed and bringing the deed up to current and extending that and having the attorneys do title opinions.
Well, I'll make a motion, we proceed with the sale as negotiated in the purchase agreement.
And I will second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve proceeding with the real estate transaction for the Jackson County Welcome Center. All those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed nay. Motion carried.
The next order of business
Wait.
is.
I'm not finished yet, I don't think.
We got-
Now we need to make approval to set the public hearing.
And set the public hearing for
10 AM on January
10 AM on
31st.
January 31st, 2023. At the Jackson County Courthouse Board of Supervisors Office.
At what
201
time?
West Platte Street, 10 AM.
10 AM, okay.
Second that.
I have a motion and a second to set the public hearing for the sale of the Welcome Center at 10 a.m. on the 31st of January, 2023. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
I'm also looking for a motion, we have, county staff draft the required resolution, for the sale of the Welcome Center property.
Say that
You have to
again.
have a resolution for, or
I
a
don't,
motion for that?
Sorry,
a motion to draft the required resolution to sell the property.
We have to have a motion for that? We always draft a resolution without a motion, don't we?
You're going to present that resolution at the public hearing, correct?
Correct.
Somebody needs to, somebody needs to prepare that resolution.
Okay.
I assume that John will do it as our legal counsel. I don't know, that would be mine,
Do we need a motion to tell him to do it if we're proceeding with?
not in my opinion, you don't.
I don't ever remember doing.
I mean, we have resolutions all the time, but I mean, I'm not your legal counsel, I guess that's a question for John, but. We have resolutions drafted all the time and you
Well,
don't. do
wouldn't
that
he
by-
draft it and then we would approve the resolution?
You're going to have to approve that resolution on your public hearing on January 31st.
I think this is what she told me to put on there, so maybe it's not a critical point to break it into two parts, but that's what she had me put on
Oh, let's just do it. That way it's done. If it's,
I'll make a motion to have a resolution driven up for the sale of the Welcome Center.
I'll second
I have a motion and a second to
it, draft the required resolution.
draft the required resolution for the sale of the Welcome Center. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
The last piece of business I have, is a correction to the term expiration dates on the Pioneer Cemetery Commission last week. We appointed Rosemary Knable and Judy Kuhn, to the Pioneer Cemetery Commission. But I gave them incorrect term expiration dates. The expiration dates should be 12/31/2025. It's like for a motion to make that correction.
So moved.
Second thought.
I have a motion and a second to correct the term expiration dates as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
That's all I have for you.
Okay, anybody else have anything? Thank you. Any commission or board reports? I did have a ECIA council meeting as far as the 5 counties that are represented with ECIA, and got my feet wet there a little bit, and it was interesting. We had a presentation from the Housing Trust Fund, and it showed how many dollars went to each county and where they're going. So Jackson County is getting a fair amount of that. So it's for owner occupied restoration and updates and such like that, for income levels that qualify, and also for rental owners that qualify for that kind of rehab. So we are getting a fair share, and we're putting our applications in anyway, so that's a good thing. I do want to report that Jack has been on that for many years, and he volunteered to be on it as a citizen yet from Jackson County, so he's still putting having some input and donating his services there also. So we also had a security advisory council meeting last week, and we talked about several things in the courthouse about updating maybe some offices as far as security. One was the attorney's office, maybe a double door. We did talk about maybe a service window. So, and again, ongoing discussion that we are having. So I don't know, was anything else out of that meeting, Lisa, that you entertained that we?
No, I think there's some good future discussion, though. I will say that I think that was one thing that we did come out of. I think that the security committee has kind of stepped up a little bit, and they are gonna make some recommendations as far as potentially some training here at the courthouse for personnel. For maybe on the AED in case someone would have a situation, being CPR trained. Jim from the sheriff's office did talk about that they have secured a tourniquet pack, I think.
Actually called Stop the Bleed Key
Stop the
Kits,
Bleed,
and there's
yeah.
40 of them that
Yeah.
got, and each secondary road vehicle will have one.
So yeah,
Grader
that's a good.
operators, yeah.
Yep.
We talked about the window glazing, and
Yep.
discussion was had, about the window, all the glass we have, and There was a number thrown out there for that. We do have a balance in our security fund of 9,000 something. I don't remember.
$9,925.
Yeah, thank you.
Approximately.
Again, we did also talk about capital improvement fund, so we'll discuss that in our,
Yeah,
budget
we've got
session.
future discussions here. Yep.
so, yeah, that's a good point. They talked about, I mean, Cropper was there and talked about Dr. Bleed CPR training for, of course, you know, if you watch a football game, it's all over the world right now, CPR training. So, I guess that's all I have.
Seventh Judicial, a lot of theirs was talking about the whole cut with the state. Kind of led right into what Jack and them talked about earlier and losing control, but yet you're still gonna be asked to provide all these services.
Nice, and no funding, right?
And yeah, and their people were pretty much, it sounded like gagged. Talking about it and. ooh, this is what it is, you're gonna present it and. No more discussion, and she even said, we asked the questions. And all they got told was they don't have the answers.
Certainly. I mean, it's also always been a contentious board as far as money and funding and where and what, and it's changed so many times since I've been here, my short time, you know, but.
And I think what's getting a lot of people up in arms is just because they are asking questions. And there's not one answer. Everything is, that hasn't been determined yet.
I know last week sitting out in our supervisor training course we went to. When they talk about mental health, I got a little concerned when they say kind of like rehabilitate in place if they can't quite stand trial or whatever, that the district's supposed to do that. One talk that went about almost an hour too long was. There's nowhere to go with in places that people that might need institutionalized versus that in the criminal system, you know, and the commitment wait list is astronomical, so there's nowhere to go with these people, and how do you say, well, you gotta handle it in your district if you got nothing to handle it with, so.
Well, in each district, each county, each are gonna be different, you know, I mean, you know, your instances are number wise and or what they are completely different from Polk County, you know, or whatever it may be, so. Hope they can get that worked out also too, so if they come with a report there, we certainly can call our legislators and voice our opinion. I have their numbers if you want.
Good.
Motion to adjourn, so we go into budget talks, or
You bet, I would entertain that.
I would so move.
Second.
Have a motion, a second to adjourn, all those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye, opposed nay, motion carried.